We're back at 8:09 with today's professionals here to tackle the morning's hot topics. Star Jones, Donny Deutsch, and in for Nancy this morning, HuffPost Live host Abby Huntsman. Good morning to all. Nice to see you. Let's start with what some people are calling the Obama second-term blues. A lot of things in the headlines right now that the president doesn't want to be in the headlines. Benghazi, the IRS, the phone records from the AP. Is there a common thread between any of these things? It doesn't appear that there is. What do you think?
I think it's what we call in the advertising business wear out. I think in this media age, we spend so many 4 years, night and day, staring at these candidates that after a while, we get a little bored and turned off. And really the only story to report going forward is what I'll call that kind of slippery slope. So I think historically going forward, we're always going to see this.
Well, I think you're making a little light of some of these stories. Some of these are pretty important big stories.
I was going to say the common theme here, what we're getting at is, I think, a lack of leadership at the end of the day. I mean, Obama has always had this stay above the fray style of politics, you know, this very lawyer-like approach. The problem is when you get behind public opinion, that's when it becomes very problematic. And I think that's what we're starting to see here, where he doesn't take control.
Perception becomes reality, and the president really has to take back control of his agenda. If we are distracted by the IRS scandal, if we're distracted by the Benghazi scandal, the clock is ticking backwards on his second term.
How long does he have?
And we're in lame duck status if he doesn't move forward.
I think this is a function, as I said again, of we are going to over-magnify versus diminish anything that happens for any second-term president.
Let's move on. The National Transportation Safety Board is recommending that states and the federal government rethink the blood alcohol level that would qualify for a DUI. They want to take it down to 0.05. That is almost a cut in half. Is this a good recommendation? Will it fly here in the United States?
Man, I can tell you it will reduce the number of fatalities due to driving under the influence by numbers almost by half. 100 countries around the world have already reduced it down or have a zero tolerance. Our country is behind the times.
I think you have to. The most important question here is, does this change behavior? I mean, we lowered this in the early 80s from 0.10 to 0.08.
It has changed.
It has changed.
The amount of deaths.
But if you look at the people that have died from drunk drivers, it's 70% of those are from 1.5%. I mean, we're talking about the 5 to 7 drinks, not those who drink 1 to 2 drinks.
So is this too restrictive? Let me put it in perspective. According to some surveys, a woman, because they're a little bit more susceptible in terms of their blood alcohol level, could have 1 drink and perhaps reach the 0.05 level. Is it too restrictive?
I think it's great. Here's why. I guarantee you 90% of our audience out there who are incredibly responsible people have had 1 or 2 drinks, and I'm fine to drive. And you think you are, but maybe you're 10% off your A game. So I know myself, it's going to give me a second pause, and I think it's a great thing for everybody.
Going back to something Starr said, the European Union put this into effect with the goal of cutting traffic fatalities in half. And it worked.
Absolutely.
If you can save 1 life, I think it's a good thing.
And also the penalties for driving under the influence and killing someone must be strengthened in this country.
Let us move on. We're going to call this the no punishment parenting method, okay? Will Smith gave an interview recently, and he revealed that he and his wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, do not punish or technically discipline their kids. Jaden, who's 14 now, Willow, who's 12. According to Will, basically when one of them would do something wrong, they would sit that child down and say, explain to me why this behavior works in your life. How do you feel about that?
First of all, everybody parents different. To me, there needs to be consequence. It is very simple, and I feel very strongly. I've got 3 young daughters. They need to learn early that there is consequence for behavior, and without punishment, it's very hard to give consequence.
I was just going to say, I think it's less about the method and more about the outcome. I come from a big family, 7 kids. My parents use different parenting styles based on our different personalities.
Did they punish you, though?
I was the worst child, so I spent a lot of time in the timeout chair, but not all of us. I mean, I think most important is having these conversations, which it sounds like Will Smith is having with his kids.
Yeah, punishment really depends on the kid. For me, not being able to go to the library was punishment enough. I was, honestly...
So you were a nerd.
I was a nerd. My sister, however, had a different kind of punishment.
If more parents use this approach of no punishment, would we have a better group of kids in the future or a worse group of kids?
Not even a question, a worse group. How can, if a child, for instance, does something, doesn't do their homework, and it's like, hey, I really wish you did your homework versus you don't do your homework, you don't see your friends tonight,
wait a minute,
you're not going to learn.
but
It's very simple.
What
Motivation.
Willow and Jade have turned into are some pretty fabulous
I was just
young
going to
people.
say, it's hard to say. It's more about the outcome, not about the method.
Jury's out. I mean, I don't know. Come on.
Finally, this one. All right, Donny, listen up. American consumers spend about $5 billion last year alone on cosmetic and grooming products for men. We're talking about things, not only moisturizers, we're talking about bronzers, we're talking under eye circle concealers, we're talking about acne concealers, things that women have been using for years. How do we feel about a growing number of men embracing these products?
I want to separate what I do on tequila during Fleet Week and really kind of everyday behavior. I think for most men it still seems as an unmanly thing to do. It's just my perception, whatever works for anybody. But if I said to you, I'm going to set you up with a guy and he's wearing concealer, your reaction would be?
I don't want to date Liberace.
Okay. So.
I think, well, I will speak from the younger generation. I do think we are becoming more accepting, more progressive, especially with social media. I mean, whether you're a male or a female, we care a lot more about how we look. I mean, we're constantly posting photos on Instagram,
Pretend you
Facebook,
weren't
Twitter.
Married. I'm setting you up with a guy. He's getting ready. He's wearing bronzer.
And hair gel are two different things.
Okay, under-eye concealer,
concealer,
and he's covering up some pimples he might have with the concealer.
Matt, are you telling me you never use under-eye concealer?
I wear it on the air every day, but that's not in my life.
Right.
Answer the question.
Look, who I choose to date is another question.
Answer the question.
I would say no. No, I would say no.
But see, it comes down to it. You know what? In theory, it all works. But in fact, you don't want to go out to dinner with the man with the lip liner on.
But are we fast approaching a time where it will be more accepted in our society?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
No?
Donny, I think we are.
Donny's world, apparently not. Donny Deutsch, thank you. Star Jones, Abby Huntsman, good to have you all here.